Good evening, everyone. I'm Johnny Ballinger, class of 1987 and president of the MUS Alumni Executive Board. I'd like to welcome Coach Jerry Peters and his wife, Ruth, also known as Mrs. Coach to some of us, members of the Peters family with us tonight, distinguished faculty and faculty emeriti, faculty, friends, alumni, and special guests to the 8th unveiling of a faculty portrait in the faculty portrait series here in the dining hall. As you see around us, we have several faculty members that have been honored thus far, and Coach Peters is receiving the 8th one this year, tonight. The portrait series was created by the Alumni Executive Board in 2005 to recognize and honor faculty members that have given of their lives and their service and dedication to the school. There have been many changes in the appearance around campus over the last decade, if not longer, but the faculty remain the one constant that keep every one of us mindful of the traditions at MUS, the things that we hold very valuable and very dear to our hearts. It is the faculty, year after year, that provides the essential substance on which the academic greatness of MUS rests. The Alumni Board determined the criteria for selecting each faculty portrait recipient. To qualify, a recipient cannot be a current member of the faculty and must have served MUS a minimum of 15 years or be retired from the school. We're here tonight to honor Coach Jerry Peters as the 8th recipient in the Faculty Portrait Series. Coach Peters inspired many generations, and I say generations plural, over his 52 years of service here at MUS, both in the history classroom and on the basketball court. Equally as important, Coach Peters was an exceptional role model of leadership when he served in the administration. I distinctly remember as a student here, Coach Peters as part of the administration, although I never had him as a teacher or a coach. So I reached out to a couple of my classmates to get their perspectives and their reflections on Coach Peters as a coach on the basketball court, and I'd like to share some of that with you tonight. Wade Harrison played varsity basketball here at MUS and then went on to play at Rhodes College. Wade told me he could write pages and pages about Coach, but what stands out the most to Wade is what Coach didn't do. He didn't yell, scream, cuss, throw chairs, or draw any attention to himself. Wade went on to say that Coach let us, his players and students, do his bidding for him on and off the court. He showed us the correct way to act in victory and defeat. He showed us how to lead others by example, not by words. He taught us to be men when most of us still had way too much boy inside. He taught us to give everything we had to schoolwork, basketball, family, our social lives, etc., or to not do them at all. He never judged anyone for walking away from something if their heart really wasn't in it. But if you were going to do it with all the effort and desire to succeed. He taught us not to be afraid of failure, but embrace it while learning from it, vowing not to make the same mistakes again. He needed no words to express his displeasure. All it took was a glance from the bench, a glare passing in the hallway, or a shake of his head from behind his desk. Likewise, he used few words to express his satisfaction with a job well done, but you always knew when he was pleased, and his lack of accolade made you want to try harder every time. When Wade started at Rhodes, he told me that he felt almost as though he was lost without the coaching of Coach Peters. He felt like he had been thrown out of the nest a little bit too early. But he soon came to realize how much better prepared he was than the other students and his teammates. Coach Peters was like a second father to most of us, Wade said, especially the basketball players, because we often spent more time on the basketball court with Coach Peters than we did with our own fathers. He was and still is a very large influence on my life as I deal with my own kids and other situations that arise in day-to-day life. The other classmate that I spoke to was Kyle King. Kyle was dreamt to been on the MUS basketball team from the 3rd grade because he attended the basketball camps here every summer. Kyle also had an older brother, Scott, who played on the varsity team, and Scott had a lot of players that Kyle looked up to, like Scott Rose, Kevin Russell, Bud and Barton Thrasher, guys like that. So as a result of all of the connections, even before Kyle got to MUS, Coach Peters was larger than life to him, and it was a dream to look forward to play on the basketball team. Now, Kyle is a great storyteller, and he shared a lot with me, and I can't read it all tonight, and I don't have the time, but I want to share some of his thoughts and give you a sense of where he was coming from. Kyle played really well through his freshman year, was able to score well, was one of the bigger players on the team, but after 9th grade, he stopped growing, and as a result, he got a bit cynical. He lost interest to some extent. He wasn't as focused on the court really as much as he should have been. His attitude about basketball changed, and he became, as I said, more cynical. And he told me a story I'd like to share. He said, in my junior year, Coach Peters called me into his office 2 weeks before the first game of the season against Ridgeway. He sat me down in the, quote, hot seat and told me, he stared at me for what seemed like an hour, and then he told me, King, I'm kicking you off the team. I felt like I had been shot. I began to cry and yell at him. Why was he kicking me off the team? He then said, King, you have the talent to be the best runner this school has ever had. You're wasting your time playing basketball. Kyle said, I continued to cry and plead with him. Finally, he said, okay, King, here's what I'm going to do. I'm making you the starting point guard. It's your job to lose. And these are Kyle's words, classic Coach Peters. So Kyle started his junior year, played really well, but eventually didn't keep up with his practices, and his inability to shoot consistently on the court led to the team not making as many points and losing a few games. So eventually Kyle was moved out of the starting lineup. He was increasingly bitter, and his target became Coach Peters, as if it was Coach Peters' fault that Kyle was not playing well on the court in the first place. Kyle, after his junior season in basketball, Kyle ultimately poured his efforts into running, and it actually paid off. He went on to win the state in the mile run. After that, he decided to quit the basketball team, and he told me it was really because of his bitterness, unfounded to a lot of extent at Coach Peters, but he decided, I'll show him I'm quitting the team. So let's fast forward a couple of years. He's at West Point talking to his mother on the phone about a recent MUS basketball loss to Christian Brothers, and Kyle's bitterness changed that night with this story. His mom said that when the team was in the locker room, they were fearing one of the famous Coach Peters lashings after the game if they didn't do well, and that's not what he did. He came in, he told them to shake it off. There are worse things in life than losing a game, and then he went on to tell a story about somebody who played for MUS. A guy that had played a few years before, who wasn't very talented, but he always gave everything he had. Nobody played with more heart or energy than this player that he was referring to. He told him that this guy never started a game at MUS, but he always busted his tail when he played on the court. He told the team that the guy was now in Iraq and serving as a battalion lead in Desert Shield. And he told them that he was scared for Scott King, Kyle's older brother, and he led the team in a prayer for Scott. Kyle told me, this is picking up with Kyle's comments, upon hearing that, I began to cry. Coach Peters, who was around thousands of kids and coached thousands of players, remembered a completely forgettable, average player at that moment. My bitterness melted away, and I began to realize just how special a man Jerry Peters is and how grateful I am to the sacrifices my parents made to send my brother and me to MUS so I could be around men like Coach Peters. I see now why Coach tried to move me off the basketball team as well. God had gifted me with a talent in running, but I wasn't using that talent as best I could by playing basketball. Coach saw the bigger picture, however, and his years of wisdom created a perspective that I couldn't appreciate at that time. As much as he loves coaching in basketball, Coach Peters loves making boys into men and helping them see God's will for their lives. Simply put, Coach Peters is one of the best people I've ever had the good fortune to be around, and I'll forever be indebted to his sacrifices he's made to MUS and to my family. My thanks to Wade Harrison and Kyle King for their very valuable insights and reflections on Coach Peters. Our panel remarks this evening begin with Mr. Barry Ray, who is principal of the upper school. Mr. Ray came to MUS in 1978, shortly after graduating from Sewanee, and taught social studies. In 1990, he was named lower school principal, and in 1996, he became the upper school principal, where he teaches a section of U.S. history today. Football fans will likely recognize Mr. Ray's voice as the color commentator for Alice Football Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Barry Ray.
Colonel Ross Lynn, Gene Thorne, Lee McQueen, John Murray Springfield, and Jake Rudolph. These were the men that I came to Memphis to meet with on a fateful day in May of 1978. I was about to graduate from the University of the South, and MUS was looking for a possible 7th and 8th grade history teacher who might could coach a sport or two. The first teacher I met that day was Jerry Peters. I'd been taken down to the lower school and to observe this teacher. His classroom was room 6 in the lower school in the configuration that we used to have. It was the southwest corner of the building. The room had no door, almost no wall. I observed him that class period going over material for an upcoming semester exam for his students. Now, the person who was hired would replace him in that classroom because Coach Peters was moving to the upper school to an administrative position. He would be in charge of student discipline, scheduling of classes for students, and creating a weekly calendar, which Coach Peters did by hand for many years. I would be fortunate to be hired, and it wouldn't take me long, that I looked upon the men that I had met with that day as the real-life symbols of MUS. They were the pillars of what MUS had been and what it was to become. As a young teacher, I chose to use Coach Peters as a resource, and I visited him many times in his office in the upper school for advice on how to handle 7th and 8th grade students. Coach Peters was always patient with my questions, and he was very insightful in his answers. I always appreciated his dry sense of humor, which he showed every time I was at his door. And I appreciated his views on teaching, on students, and what MUS really stood for. Now, for some other teachers, they counted on him to help with discipline. Mr. Bowman, I'm going to use your story. Peter Bowman has related many times the story to me of his first year at MUS when he was having a little problem with some older students in his art class. He had talked to Coach Peters. Coach Peters said, "Bring them to my office." When class time came, Peter escorted the guys up to Coach Peters' office. The door was open. And they started to enter, and Coach Peters, and I'm going to put my glasses back on for just a second. Wait right there. And the boys stopped at the door. And for what must have seemed like an eternity, Coach Peters just let them stand there. He ultimately waved them in, and the disciplinary process began. He looked over his glasses and didn't speak for several minutes. The students dropped their eyes, and then he began to speak in his usual unhurried way. "Boys, we've got a problem. Just how badly do you want to graduate from MUS?" Now, to this day, Mr. Bowman tells the story with great glee, and I'm watching him here. He's enjoying that. Peter has great respect for Coach Peters and the help that he gave him that year. Now, while on staff, Coach Peters has had 4 sons attend and graduate our school. Coach used to live in one of the houses just south here on the campus, really close, within walking distance. One day, he saw a student who was very badly unshaven. Right, Bill Harwell? He said, "Bill, you're to go home and you're to shave and you're not to come back until you are completely shaven." Bill left. He didn't go home because Bill's a friend of Judd's. He went to Coach Peters' house. He shows up about 30 minutes later back at school, and Coach Peters sees him in the hall. Says, "Bill, that's much better." And Coach Peters gets home that afternoon, goes into the bathroom, and there is shaving stuff everywhere. His shaving stuff, along with a tremendous amount of stubble in the sink. He said, "Ruth, what is this?" He said, "Well, Bill came over in the middle of the day and he had to shave." It must have been interesting being a school administrator and a father at the same time, having your friend's sons know so much about you. Somehow Coach handled it extremely well. He expected the same thing from his sons that he expected from all of the boys. And I do think that that's how he earned the high respect that he had from the student body. Now, personally, I owe Coach Peters a great deal. When John Murray Springfield passed away in the August of 1989, the school operated in the lower school without a specific lower school principal, at least for the first semester. Gene Thorne asked Coach Peters if he would go to the lower school each week and spend several hours each day overseeing things to make sure that the lower school was running smoothly. Now, when not in class, the counselor John Cady and I tried to carry out the administrative duties, always under Coach Peters' watchful eye. In December, Mr. Thorne named me to be the principal of the lower school for the following school year. I came to find out that it was with a high recommendation from Coach Peters on my behalf that Mr. Thorne made that decision and gave me an opportunity to serve the school in that capacity. And I am forever grateful and in his debt. Now, there was an incident that first year in administration that did make me wonder for just a second if I had made a good choice. It was basketball season, and we were scheduled to play Treadwell at Treadwell. Some kind of incident had occurred at their school that had kind of spilled over into the general community surrounding Treadwell, and there was a lot of tension in that area. Mr. Thorne called a meeting in his office. But when I arrived, Lee McQueen and Jerry Peters were already there, seated. Mr. Thorne came from around his desk, kind of looked at all three of us, and he asked, "I need your opinion. What should we do? Should we cancel and forfeit the game? Should we play, but tell students, parents, and cheerleaders they're not to attend? Should we hire guards to travel with us to make sure that our guys are safe?" No one answered, and it seemed like an eternity that we sat there. Now, this was my first year as an administrator in a room with three men with tremendous experience and wisdom, and I thought it best to keep my mouth shut, listen, and learn. I learned all right. Mr. Thorne, who was normally extremely calm and just did not react too often, turned red-faced, stood up abruptly, had a notebook in his hand, threw it against the wall, and exclaimed kind of loudly, "I'll tell you guys one thing, I'm not making this decision by myself. I asked for your opinion, and I expect you to give me one." I was dumbstruck and silent. Lee McQueen and Jerry Peters quickly answered, now Gene, we're thinking." They knew how to handle that. Ultimately, Mr. Thorne calmed down. I didn't. I was still wide-eyed. And to this day, if you were to ask me what did we wind up deciding in that meeting, I'm not sure I could tell you. I was still thinking about the event, what had happened. And for a few seconds, I really had some reflection on whether that would have been a good choice. But there's no doubt in my mind that Mr. Thorne and Coach Peters and Lee McQueen, they were men of positive influence on my life personally and professionally. And Coach Peters, I owe you a huge debt. And for the last several years, Coach Peters has been a full-time teacher. As a government teacher, he was a member of the history department. And Coach Peters' wisdom regarding departmental policies, school matters, was greatly appreciated by all of us in the history department. He was thoughtful, always respectful to the opinions of others, even if he thought we were wrong. And as a teacher, Coach Peters kept the interest of the student at the forefront of his teaching methods and how he conducted his classes. Now, I love the story that Dr. Harkins has told many times. One time, Dr. Harkins is running off an exam in a European history class. Coach Peters walks in, asks him what he's doing. He tells him. Coach Peters asks to see a copy of the exam. Cold, he takes it. He answers every question correctly, probably not having reviewed history in Europe for quite a number of years. Dr. Harkins said that to this day, he's not sure he could have answered every question correctly, and he had made the exam. Now, even a Swanee man like me is impressed with a Southwestern/Rhodes man like you for that. Coach Peters, in my humble opinion, no one deserves to be honored with a portrait more. You are truly one of the giants of the school's past, and your influence will be positively felt in the school's future. Congratulations.
Thanks, Barry. Next up, we have Coach Matt Bakke, the new varsity basketball head coach, and someone who is not new to MUS. Before joining the faculty in 1999, Coach Bakke coached at two Memphis area schools, Millington High School and Rhodes College, where he guided students in basketball and track. Since starting with the Owls 13 years ago, Matt has taken on multiple positions in the athletic department, from serving as the current department chair to coaching lower school cross country, track, and varsity basketball. He also serves on the academic council and is a member of the admissions committee. Because of his dedication to building scholar athletes of strong moral character, Coach Bakke was awarded the 2011 Distinguished Teaching Award. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Matt Bakke.
I'm very proud and humbled to be asked to speak here tonight as we honor Coach Peters. It has been my great privilege to be associated with Coach Peters for the past 14 years. He's been a true inspiration to me in the way that he strives to do things the right way every day as a teacher, as a coach, and as a person. I will forever treasure his leadership, his wisdom, and most of all, his friendship. I've respected and admired Coach Peters since I've been a basketball player in high school at White Station. MUS set the standard for basketball in the Memphis area. The Owls were always the team to beat. And by competing against the MUS guys like Lee Marshall and Courtney Rudolph and others, it made me a better player. And in fact, I spent a lot of time in the Todd Snowden gym because Coach Peters would give the keys to Brett Bolton or Jerry Martin, and that's where everybody came to play. So nobody has been a bigger influence on the game of basketball in the Memphis area than Coach Peters. I've been often asked, what are the things that makes Coach Peters so successful? And my short answer is this. Basketball is a lot more than just X's and O's. There's many, many aspects to running a basketball program. And Coach Peters is excellent at all aspects, from organizing basketball camps to ordering equipment to organizing 7th and 8th grade teams to coaching his own teams. He's detailed, he's organized, and he pays specific attention to every phase of the program. And I have indeed gotten to see firsthand exactly how to run a basketball program. Coach Peters has too many great qualities to talk about now, but I would like to list a few of those, a few of my favorites. First of all, he's a teacher. He conducts practice like a class. His lessons are clear, concise, and to the point. I remember when I first came on board here in the spring of 1999, Coach told me to come to a spring practice and just watch. And I was amazed at the environment. I thought about my own practices and how chaotic they were compared to Coach's. It was so simple and so effective. A friend of mine played basketball at another school here in Memphis, and he attended, like many other people, MUS basketball camps weren't just attended by MUS players, but other people. And he attended MUS basketball camp. So he got to play for Coach Peters for one day. And his school ran a 1-3-1 zone, just like MUS. And he told me after playing, he got Coach Peters organized a bunch of basketball campers, and they played in some kind of extra game against an AU team. And so he got to play that one day for Coach Peters. And he told me after that, he said, I learned more about the 1-3-1 zone in one practice than I did my entire high school career. And that's what it was like for me to work with Coach. From the first day to the last day was a learning experience. And I soaked it all in. And it's just amazing the knowledge that he has. But he's not only a teacher of the game, but he's a student. Each and every year we would go to basketball clinics. Coach is constantly learning, reading, watching, and trying to improve as a coach. When we first got here, we had a meeting, we were talking about basketball, and I was amazed at his vast knowledge of the game. In fact, it was during the time when the triangle offense was coming back. The Chicago Bulls were running it, and I was studying it. I had all these, I had learned it from somebody that I had run across, and I was real excited about it, and I told him about it. And he sat there, and he nodded his head, and he listened, and the very next day, he gave me a book that was written. It was the offense was designed by Tex Winters in the 60s, and Coach Peters had the book 25 years ago, and he said, "Is this what you're talking about?" I said, "Yes." I said, his ability to prepare was second to none. Our teams were always ready for every situation. Albert Johnson, a former point guard, once told me, he said, I always felt prepared going into every game. And that's the way I felt. I always had confidence because I knew that we were ready. When I was coaching at Millington, I was like all these coaches that had a clipboard. You know, during timeouts, I'd be drawing these things up. There was no need for clipboards here. In fact, I would draw plays up during timeouts, and guys would be going to the wrong place. And it's because they were seeing it upside down when I was writing it. But we never needed a clipboard. All we needed was call this play we worked on. And we never tried to do anything we hadn't worked on. I'd say, Coach, what about this defense? He goes, we hadn't worked on it. So we were always ready, always prepared. Coach Peters loves competition. He loved the challenges of the game. He was always at his best in the biggest games, and especially when things weren't going well, when things seemed lost, he could always seem to make things right and do it so simply. I just love his approach to the game. He's a basketball purist. He believes in following the principles of the game. It's not what we are doing, it's how we are doing it, he would always say. I would have loved to play for Coach Peters. To me, he was a player's coach. Teach the fundamentals of the game. Teach the players how to play with your eyes. Practice making good decisions and let them play. The players were truly empowered. I can remember games when I would be trying to say things to the players and he would say, let them play, let them play. It was beautiful. Most importantly though, he's a man of character and integrity. He lives every day trying to do things the right way, and that's what he expects of his players. To me, that is his greatest gift to those around him. I'm so very grateful to have had the opportunity to work with Coach Peters. And we went through a lot together in 13 years. Breakfast meetings, basketball clinics, practices, lunch meetings, road trips, going to games, countless phone conversations, dinner meetings, scouting trips, tough losses, and great wins. My time here at MUS with Coach Peters has made me a better teacher, a better coach, and a better person. There's only one Coach Peters, and his influence and impact on the game of basketball and the players he coached will live on forever. Congratulations, Coach. Thank you for all you've done for MUS, the basketball community, and for me.
us this evening is one of Coach Peters' early outstanding alumni basketball stars, Jimmy Ogle from the class of 1970. Jimmy played basketball all 4 years of high school and was team captain his senior year. Jimmy is tireless in his support of his class and of MUS, and for all we know, he might even be in the running for designation as head buzzard. After MUS, Jimmy earned his bachelor's degree at the University of Memphis and embarked on a career in management and promotion of some well-known Memphis institutions, including the Memphis Park Commission, Mud Island, Memphis Queen Line, Performant Entertainment, also known as Beale Street, the Memphis Rock and Soul Museum, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the FedEx St. Jude Classic. Currently, Jimmy is Director of Community Engagement for the Riverfront Development Corporation. However, many of you may know him as a renowned local tour guide and history buff, the man often identified as the roving raconteur. Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Ogle.
Thank you. Well, welcome, Coach Peters and Ruth and Jeff and Judd and John and Jason and wives and grandkids, right? We're all here, right? All right. I'm honored to be invited to speak today, but the task is daunting. And I doubt that I was asked to speak from the academic viewpoint. So let me just get that out of the way and say I had Coach Peters from my 8th grade government and history class, okay? And now I will focus on the coach. My senior year in 1969 and 1970 was the birth of the Buzzards, and a group of guys that played very well as a team, cheered on by a student body that captured the very definition of MUS school spirit. And I thank my fellow students and the faculty here, the administration, but most of all, Coach Peters for allowing all those memories for a lifetime happen for our team. For me, I found the true meaning of a father, as my father passed away in December of that season. Our team was inspired and went on to accomplish a miracle year. We even won Coach Peters' 100th game and didn't even know it. And we won the countdown at that time, you know. And we really accomplished a lot of things that year. I sometimes joke that of all the great players that have played at MUS, the MVP award is still named the Ogle Award. Named for my father, of course, not me. Coach Peters, you were then and have been a father figure to many of us over the years. So how in 5 minutes does one reduce and talk about the feelings of thousands of fans and faculties, mothers and media, opposing coaches, opposing players, and about 200 plus varsity players? How do you bring all that since 1964 and talk about Coach Peters? Well, you go to the Cliff Notes, of course. Y'all remember Cliff Notes? Oh, come on. Y'all remember Cliff Notes. Come on. And I go to my Cliff Notes right here. This is the Tro Gillespie Temple Brown DVD of 2012. And it reduces about 50 hours of interviews with over 100 people, even one Skyped all the way from Australia, into 40 minutes of precious images and memorable quotes. Has anybody seen this video? I know y'all have seen this video. Yeah, I know you have. Well, here we go. We're going to go through the video real quick. The video opens with a Louis Armstrong song, the version It's a Wonderful World, with vintage footage of some MUS games from the 1960s in the old gym. What a place that was. How many of y'all played in the old gym? Come on, Tro. Okay, get up in the old gym. Coach Peters remarks, how fast this one continuous journey has gone by. Ruth even quips in, we were going to be here for just a couple of years and go off to law school, right? Well, oops, something happened along the way, didn't it? Next are a series of quotes from all those fans and faculty and moms and players that I mentioned earlier. And here are a few of those quotes. A teacher who happened to be a very successful basketball coach, iconic figure, family dinner discussions, prepared, sustained success, confidence, adaptation, preparation that breeds confidence in schoolwork and later in business. Scouting advantage. Most games are won before the opening tip. Team play, well prepared, competitive, fundamentals. Team play, smarts, discipline, and hard work. Again, these are a lot of people with a lot of different perspectives here. Quiet competitor. Now, I know he yelled in the 1960s. I can distinctly remember that. The essence of sports, execution under pressure. Some of these folks, these quotes are here today. We can always get better. Mental toughness, values. No one player was more important than another. Always had a smile. Approach practices like the classroom, with the games being the final exams. Rules on the court, rules off the court. We've been told how to put on a uniform, right? Obligations to the team come first. Trust each other, become a team. Excellent is a habit. That's a sign that's on the wall in the locker room. Wisdom, leadership, friendship. Coach, you made all of us better than we thought we could be. And Troy Gillespie's MUS is a school for a lifetime, and you are a coach of a lifetime. Now, how about a little 30-second timeout for Ruth? Okay, 30 seconds here. She missed only 2 games since 1960. I was pretty mad about missing those 2 games, weren't you? One mother's quote was, "Our boys were Ruth's boys too." Now, one of the sons made this quote, "A train is not good without its tracks." Now, I don't know if I can get away with calling my mother a railroad track, but one of you guys said that in the video, and I thought that was a great team combo here of the total package of Ruth and Jerry, so thank you, Ruth, too. About the 2007 state championship tournament run, the ultimate test, the bittersweet moment. Here's what Coach Peters said. "This was a big game. I remember that game because I wasn't there." Well, everybody knows the story of Coach having the stroke, putting the uniforms out before they went to the game, had to go to the hospital, the tearful moments, and how the team called back, or one of the sons called back with the results. Ruth said, "He told Coach Bakke and Coach Camp, 'I trust you. I have complete confidence in you to take the team up there and do what we planned, and we'll all be okay.'" He said that to Coach Bakke and Coach Counts. Well, what did Coach Counts say? "We can't screw this up." Coach Peters told Coach Bakke to tell the team, "It's your time to play." And Coach Bakke said, and they played. "We won not for him, but we won because of him." Coach Bobby Austin once said, "The best measure of a coach is what they do when he is not there." And this showing at the state tournament that year really shows that. Troy Gillespie had a story in the video about the capital campaign. In 1999, he was leading, and he and Mr. Haguewood went to the faculty to get them to have a buy-in there. And Coach Peters was so moved, he raised his hand and said, "This school has done so much for me, I'm going to donate 1 year's salary." And they wanted a dry eye in the joint until he raised his hand again and said, "I didn't say which year." Remember, he started in the 60s. Right? I'm sure you donated, though. About that road to 1,000 victories, Coach Peters said there was 1,000 lessons. It was important for the school. It wasn't about him. It was for the greater good of the school. I think we all felt that in 2012. At the end of the video, the thank yous are very touching. And today I'll leave you with a few Coach Peters quotes from the video. I might be stealing some of your speech here, Coach. "I've led a very simple life. I did not play golf, didn't go fishing, didn't hunt. No playing cards, no smoking, no alcohol," and as he said it, not that there's anything wrong with those things. "A boring life to some. My teaching and my coaching consumed me. I had my faith, my family, and my work. This is always what I wanted to do." So to Coach Peters and Ruth, from all of us MUS Owls Nation worldwide, it is indeed a wonderful world here at MUS. In the classroom, in the hallways, in the locker room, on the practice court, in the arena of play, you've made it a much, much better world for many people. And thank you. How about 15 quick and snappy raws? Anybody want to do that real quick right here in the middle of the program? Ready, go. Rah, 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 rah. Team. Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Jimmy. It's now my distinct pleasure to introduce Mr. Ellis Haguewood, Headmaster of Memphis University School. Mr. Haguewood is known by generations of alumni and students as an outstanding educator and remarkable leader. He came to MUS in 1969 and held a variety of leadership positions before being named headmaster in 1996. In his years as headmaster, Mr. Haguewood has led the campus through an extraordinary transformation, all the while preserving the strengths and traditions that make this such a great school. Ladies and gentlemen, Ellis Haguewood.
Got a lot of players out there. Any referees? Probably not. For me, Coach Peters has always epitomized the ideal teacher in an independent school for boys. He's tough in the classroom, demanding on the playing fields, but unyielding in his effort to get boys to, quote, do things right, end quote. And he did things right at MUS for 52 years. Unassuming, wise, creative. He set the very highest standards for himself in punctuality and attention to detail, organization, responsibility, preparation, unselfishness, patience, focus, perseverance, discipline. He always enjoyed the utmost respect and admiration of his colleagues on the faculty because most of those 52 years he was a full-time teacher who defined by example the proper balance that should exist between academics and athletics in an independent school for boys. And in all he did, he defined excellence. In building that tradition of excellence, however, in all aspects of the school for which he had responsibility, he was the consummate team player himself. He always put the good of the school first. I've always been impressed, and you should be too, by the length of his career at MUS and by the depth of excellence in all that he did. But to give you an idea of the breadth of his work at MUS, consider this. In the classroom over his career, he taught 7th grade mathematics, physical education, U.S. government and history, world area studies, upper school American government, Russian history, Russian government, advanced placement and regular 12th grade American government, advanced placement and regular 12th grade comparative government, and recent American history. In his position as an administrator for 14 years, an assistant principal, he produced the master schedule of classes, he created individual student schedules, and he oversaw the disciplinary efforts of the school. And of course, in the athletic area, he coached, when he first came, lower school football and basketball, various levels. He founded and then served as head coach of the track and cross-country teams for nearly 2 decades. He served briefly as athletic director, and of course, he coached varsity basketball from 1964 through this past season, his teams achieving just over 1,000 wins. General Douglas MacArthur once wrote, quote, "On these fields of friendly strife are sown the seeds that on other fields and other days will bear the fruits of victory," end quote. And many of you guys in this room and others scattered around the United States and even the world understand these words because of lessons you learned and virtues that you imbibed that were taught and then annealed in the crucible of Todd Snowden Gymnasium or Ross Lynn Arena or the track around Hull Dobbs Athletic Field under the unrelenting hand of Jerry Peters. During his career, he has, of course, garnered a number of prestigious awards. Here at MUS, he won the Jean Barbie Hale Service Award, the Distinguished Teaching Award that was initiated by John Murray Springfield, the John M. Nail Outstanding Teaching Award, and he held the first A. Robert Bolte Jr. Chair of Excellence in Teaching. Outside the school, He was awarded the Hubert Smothers Award for Distinguished Teaching from the Tennessee Association of Independent Schools, and he was inducted into the Rhodes College Hall of Fame and the TSSAA Hall of Fame. Now, no one, on a personal note, no one encouraged and supported me more over the years that I've been at MUS than Jerry Peters. He has been a mentor, a friend, and certainly an example of integrity to me. As Alexander Pope wrote of his friend Joseph Anderson, I can say of Jerry Peters, quote, "In action faithful and in honor clear, who broke no promise, served no private end, who gained no title, and who lost no friend, ennobled by himself, by all approved and praised," end quote. And today, Jerry, you'll be joining some of your old friends here on the wall of the Campus Center Dining Hall. It'll be nice to see you up there in the company of some old friends. Behind me, Lee McQueen and John Murray Springfield. And across behind you, Jake Rudolph, Bill Hatchett, Mike Dedrick, Betty Jo Higgs, Skip Daniel. For most of us at MUS, he is one of a handful of people who have come to define the MUS experience. One of a handful in a pantheon of great leaders in the history of this school. Congratulations, Jerry Peters.
Thanks, Alice. Our portrait of Jerry Peters is by award-winning artist Ellen Cooper from Media, Pennsylvania. Ms. Cooper has enjoyed an extraordinary career as a portrait artist of distinction. Highly regarded by her peers and art collectors, Ms. Cooper's canvases have hung in museums, are represented in numerous private, corporate, and institutional collections, and have garnered 20 national and international awards in just the last few years. Ms. Cooper and her work have been featured in many publications, including International Artist and the Art of the Portrait American Art Collector. Ms. Cooper was educated at Tyler School of Art and Temple University, where she received her BFA, summa cum laude, and MFA, magna cum laude degrees. Ms. Cooper's commissioned work is diverse and includes family and children, as well as distinguished executive, judicial, medical, academic, and religious leaders. And now it includes this fine portrait of H. Jerry Peters here in the dining hall. Unfortunately, Ms. Cooper could not be with us this evening for the unveiling, but I trust you will join me and the rest of the group when we see that it is just as an excellent choice, and she was an excellent choice for the artist. Now I would like to ask Coach and Mrs. Coach to join Mr. Haguewood and me as we unveil the portrait. Sort of like that. All right. As the walls of the dining hall become lined with the portraits of revered faculty members like Coach Peters, who have played an important and influential role in the lives of generations of students, we will be constantly reminded of the primary reason that we continue to appreciate and support Memphis University School. Coach Peters has devoted his life to the students and to the school. His influence will continue to impact so many of us for years to come. On behalf of the Memphis University School Alumni Executive Board, it is my pleasure to present to the school this portrait of Coach Jerry Peters.
Thank you, Ellis. Barry, Jimmy, Matt, Johnny, thank you for those wonderful things you've said. Also, thank you in the audience for being here and sharing this moment with me. God has blessed me in many ways. Too many ways to elaborate. But I do want to elaborate on two ways that God has blessed me. First, my family. My family is a great family. I'd like for them to stand briefly when their names are called. Okay? All four of my sons are here. Jeff tore his Achilles tendon last night in Charlotte when he was coaching basketball at Charlotte Latin School. But he's pretty quick with things. He's going to be operated on tomorrow morning in Charlotte. Jeff has 3 children. Ellison is a sophomore in college. Turn Ellison so they can see you. And twin boys, Gannon and AG. Thank you. We'll go down the line as far as age is concerned. Judd has 2 girls, students at St. Mary's. They're Sims, the oldest one, and Meg. Sims was here, but she had to leave early. Thank you. And then there is John. John's a 3rd son, and he has 3 boys, all students at PDS. There's Jonathan.
He's at MUS.
What? He's at MUS.
He's got a game in 45 minutes.
Jonathan. Jonathan, he's a freshman at MUS. And then there's Jerry Peters, PDS. And then there's Jackson Peters. All right. Jackson's at PDS. And their mother, Jackie. Jason Peters. Jason doesn't have any children. He's not old enough yet. But he teaches at MUS, and he coaches the 7th grade basketball team. they're undefeated, and he's going to see that they're undefeated after tonight. So we miss him. He was here, and that's my family. The second way that God has blessed me is steering me to MUS. MUS started in 1955. That is the new MUS. The old MUS ended in 1935 on Manassas Avenue, downtown, next to Forest Park in Baptist Hospital. The new MUS started in 1955. I was fortunate to get in on the ground floor. I came here in 1960. So the school was just 5 years old. Ross Lynn and Gene Thorne did a great job in starting us on that very primitive campus, and along with Ellis Haguewood, brought us to the point that we are sitting here in this magnificent building. We should not ever forget what Ross Lynn and Gene Thorne did and what Ellis is doing now. I simply love the school. I look forward to every day in coming to school. Oh, every day was not a picnic, but I liked the challenges, the problems, and everything that went with it. There was never a dull day. As Barry pointed out with Bill Harwell. I was going to tell that story. But there's another story I can tell about Bill. Bill, park in between the yellow lines. In between the yellow lines. Bill had a habit of parking on the outside line. Well, Bill fixed me. He would be in a hurry each morning, coming in late, and he pulled up one morning, as usual, late, and on the outside of the inline, he got out of his car with a bucket of paint, yellow paint. This is a true story. This is a true story. He painted a yellow line right alongside his car. Now, the good thing about it, Bill's has a son in 9th grade, and he attends MUS. Never a problem. Bill taught his son right. I love the school with all my heart. It's special. It's special to me, and it should be special to you. I guess what makes it so special are the people, the students, the faculty, the parents, great people. And we don't want to ever forget what makes MUS strong. The people, the people. May God bless the United States, and may God bless MUS. Thank you.
Again, on behalf of the MUS Alumni Executive Board, thanks to all of you for being here tonight. Please take a moment before you leave and come up and say congratulations to Coach Peters, and thanks again. Have a good evening.